Welcome back. The Democratic Alliance says the new Minister of Electricity, could cost the country more than 37 million rand a year. President Cyril Ramaphosa announced this position during his State of the Nation address last week. The DA says this is yet another opportunity to appoint a useless cadre. To unpack this further, we're joined by Zwelinzima Ndevu, who is a public governance analyst. He joins us via our video link this morning. Zwelinzima, it's great to see you. Thanks very much for making time for us this Monday morning. Of course, aside from the massive cost implication of having a new minister in government, it's also doubling up, isn't it? Why do we need a new electricity minister when we've got Gwede Mantashe?
Good morning and good morning to your listeners. I think this is probably an ill-advised decision. That my view is that instead of creating a ministry, they should have created a unit within the presidency that will deal specifically with the issue of electricity. A ministry is costly indeed because you need to staff that ministry with a lot of people. You also need to finance the ministry at the highest level. So having a unit head who is a technical expert, because we should remember that a minister would not necessarily be a technical expert in electricity, but if you have a unit head, you would then have somebody who's got the technical know-how.
Right, because a minister by definition is sort of a political appointment, isn't it?
Yes, certainly as the executive, you would certainly have a person that would be able to take matters to the executive, would be able to take matters to the cabinet, but that particular individual has the necessary expertise.
So, Zwelinzima, just give us a sense of your take on what the president is trying to do here. I mean, is he sort of moving away from addressing the challenges insofar as Gwede Mantashe is concerned? Is he unable to get rid of Gwede Mantashe because of his own political issues within the governing party?
Remember, the issue of electricity currently doesn't fall under Mr. Mantashe. It actually falls under Mr. Pravin Gordhan, who is the Minister of State and Owned Entities. But the ANC resolution have placed this particular issue under Minister Mantashe. So what it all says is that the president does not have necessary confidence in Mr. Mantashe to do it, or he thinks that in his reconfigured cabinet, Mr. Mantashe can deal specifically only with this issue. So it could be one of the two.
I mean, if someone is unable to fulfill the portfolio, Gwede Mantashe is Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy. If someone is unable to fulfill the duties of a portfolio, what would be the next steps here? I don't imagine it's appointing someone in a parallel position.
Ordinarily, in a normal society, and I'm not saying our society is not normal, but there are many things that are happening that are not normal. In a normal society, a minister who is not fulfilling his responsibilities, his duty, or any other individual who works in the public sector or any institution, that person would be relieved of his duties, either being fired or the person voluntarily resigning. We know in our country that many of the executive members are actually sitting in the executive for many, many years without doing anything, without fulfilling a responsibility. So it's not surprising that people are kept when they actually should be taken out and put competent people who know what they need to be doing in those positions.
Yeah. Shall we go through the costs involved in appointing a minister, Zwelinzima? Because it's obviously not just the minister. He would have a deputy, he'd have an office manager, he'd have a communications officer, not to mention what is arguably the biggest line item in the cost analysis of appointing a minister, which would be his security detail at around 8 million rand.
Certainly, when you have a minister, you have this added cost that would normally not have when you have a bureaucrat as appointed and an administrator appointed. So these are some of the unnecessary costs, really. We don't know why ministers have such elaborate security detail, because many of them are not under threat. Certainly, if they are under threat, it's from communities that expect them to deliver services which they are not delivering. So that becomes a bigger cost. And you would find that the fact that the minister would be situated within the president does not lessen the cost, because we know that they would still have to have an office space. They would have staff. Currently, Ministers have to have over 10 support staff. Deputy ministers, if they would have a deputy minister, would have to have about 7 support staff members. So these are all costs that I think, in my view, are necessary.
Yeah, costs, and we already have a bloated cabinet. Zwelinzima Ndevu is a public governance analyst joining us via our video link there, and apologies to our viewers once again for the quality of that connection. But his opinion is that instead of appointing a new Minister of Electricity, what we should do is appoint a specialist within the presidency, someone with specialist knowledge in the sector. We've not heard the last of this story.